Hey, Jerry.
What?
Who won Starcraft in DC?
Kill yourself.
Hey, Jerry. Who won Starcraft in DC?
You kill yourself twice as much.
No, but Jerry, seriously, who fucking won StarCraft?
Idiot Idra. Idra. Are you happy? Fucking Idra won. God, kill your fucking self.
Can't stop the train, baby. Woo!
A weekend in DC at MLG, we have got the 39th round of VVV Gaming's The Losers Bracket. We're going to be looking at all the happenings that occurred in our nation's capital, and we're going to start that off with a little bit of StarCraft 2 coverage. Today we got one special guest with us. He was at the event. His brother played in the event. His name is VVV Noxie, Mr. Manjelly. Oh God, I love that last name. Michael, how are you doing today, sir?
Very good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, my man. So first things first, how did you enjoy the event? What were your thoughts of MLG DC? And I believe you were at Raleigh as well, correct? So what were the differences? Which one did you like better?
First off, it was a great event. I had a really great time. As far as which one was better, I think DC was better just because, it was the second time they did StarCraft 2, not the first time kind of thing. So from a StarCraft 2 aspect, I thought that MLG DC was a lot better, and I had a lot of fun at both. It was my second event, so the only one I have really to compare it to is Raleigh.
Yeah, and then, also there's so many more VVV members at DC than Raleigh, so it was probably a little bit easier to find people to talk to at any point in time.
Yeah, I got to meet a ton of VVV members, and at Raleigh, VVV, he didn't pick up the StarCraft 2 team. They weren't picked up yet as of then, so I really actually didn't have really anyone to talk to as far as like being on a team or being associated with any kind of community. I kind of was just going to see the event, see what it was like because it was in my hometown.
Why is it that the Korean StarCraft gamers are so much better than the Americans? It seemed like we couldn't even compete with Hydra at the event. Like, I think the only one that took a game was Kiwikaki, and that seemed like it was by luck.
I mean, AJTLS took a game off him. I think there was another player that took a game off of him. But you got to understand that, like, kind of where he's coming from. They train a lot more, and they train a lot harder. Idra's been kind of in the scene for a while. He kind of knows what he needs to do to beat players, but I think it's more or less the Korean play style right now. On the Korean ladder, they tend to do different things, and I think that the U.S. just hasn't seen that. Like, a lot of, like, the mediocre U.S. players that are playing at that top level really haven't seen that, and that's why he looks so good.
Do you think that's why Huck probably struggled against him? Because it seemed like he was struggling pretty bad.
That could be a reason. I know Huck doesn't play probably as much as he could. Huck's going to go over to Korea. He's going to be training with Idra, and I'm sure he's going to, like, see, like, a lot of improvement. And, yeah, that could have definitely been a factor. Also, keep in mind that by the time that, those games got around, they already played some. They could have been kind of wearing down, stuff like that. Idra's stamina, obviously, is probably a lot better, especially mentally in these lands, whereas Select, hasn't played in that many lands compared to Idra, and he was, pretty bogged down. He played, like, 12 matches or something like that. Huck, same kind of issue. They both played a lot of matches.
Now that Idra came over and won, do you think more South Korean players are going to come over and try and compete and beat him?
No. Right now, the scene is bigger in Korea. It was, I think, the sponsors doing to bring Idra back over into the U.S. He just joined an American team. He wants to kind of make that, I think it was more of like a publicity thing. He kind of wants to go over, make his presence known that, yeah, I'm on American team a month, just like feeding off of these sponsors kind of thing. So Bigfoot Networks kind of brought him into the MLG, but I don't see anyone following him or like chasing after him, if that's what you're asking.
What would you say was the best match of this event and why?
I mean, okay, the matches between Select and Huck were really good, but honestly, the Kiwikaki versus White Raw game, where it went down to like the very last wire in like a base race, I think was definitely the most exciting. It's really fun to see that. Granted, it's like, okay, it can go either way or whatnot, and some people consider that all in or it's like not as good strategic gameplay. But I think that's the most exciting to watch, and that's why I would consider it the best.
Were there any new strategies that people came up with and utilized well?
Going back to that one that Kiwikaki did, he did a fast Dark Templar rush on White Ra, and he won with that. And apparently, I was talking to some of the members on Root Gaming. Apparently, he was just talking about using that against Huck, like on the airplane ride to DC. And he drew White Ra first, and White Ra being a very respectable European Protoss player, he was like, well, I might not ever get to see Huck, so let me just try it now. Just things like that. I mean, obviously it paid off. He did win the game, so I'm sure there's other strats that I didn't really see too much. But with the new patch being out, a lot of the Zerg play was different. A lot of the Terran and TOS was also different.
Speaking of the patch, how much do you think, with the patch dropping right before this tournament got underway, how much do you think that that actually impacted the overall placings in this tournament? Do you think that it had an effect? Would it have changed anything if the patch had not come out?
For certain players, yes, and obviously I don't know those players. It's all kind of part of their playstyle, but to give you an example, some Protoss players might go for like a block or something with 2 pylons at the bottom of a ramp. Well, with the new patch, roaches are able to hit that, so it's really not effective. And so if you were planning on doing that at DC, you all of a sudden don't have a strat going into DC that you've been practicing for against Zerg. So I'm sure some Zerg versus TOS games, Zergs might have came out on top because of that. In general, a lot of Zerg versus Zerg games could have ended differently because of the roach range. I think that was a really big factor. So yeah, I think results did vary, and I think certain players could have done better, or some players might have, been worse off because better players were losing to stuff like that because of the changes.
What did you think of the overall turnout for Starcraft at MLG? It seemed like it was definitely bigger than last event. Looks like there was actually more overall to watch. I mean, they had the main stage now with that giant screen. Do you prefer that, or would you want to see more in the future?
I kind of have mixed opinions on this. I think that people need to see the players actually playing. Like, what you see on the big screen, that's great and all, but, you come to a live event, you kind of want to see live playing, I think, and I think it could be set up a little bit better, maybe. It was basically the same setup as Raleigh, but as far as the turnout, there was probably, a couple hundred more than Raleigh. And they gave us 6 benches instead of 2 this time. So, I mean, there's still tons of people on the final day. The big screen's great, but I think people really want to be able to see from the sidelines kind of like what players are doing and stuff like that. I think they could set it up somehow where you'd be able to see that. Maybe not being too close to the players, but at least in distance to, watch their APM and see like how incredible they actually can play.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that would take also a change of culture on the players' part, because, I mean, I remember when I was watching, all of a sudden, Idra was like, asking the ref to step people away. And it's like, coming from the console side, I would say that's not at all how we enjoy esports. Like, if you looked at Brawl, or you looked at, Halo 3 or Halo Reach, the fans are right there watching the players. They're involved. They're shouting. And you get over to the PC side, and it's like, wow, this is like a graveyard. To be honest with you, I think I know what the exact sort of analogy is. It was like golf. Right, you were allowed to clap politely, and you were allowed to stand back, and we were going to sip tea, and we were going to watch, but there's no energy there. Do you get that feeling too?
Yeah, I do, and I try to explain it to my parents and to like my roommates and stuff like that. As kind of like, you kind of have to think of it as chess, and I think it's more of StarCraft than PC gaming, because if you remember Counter-Strike kind of has that like Halo-esque competition to it. There's screaming, there's lots of stuff going on, managers are in people's face, crowds are like going wild. But StarCraft is kind of like a more well-mannered community. You're not trying to like shout and stuff to make anyone bad, but you can applaud good play. So I don't know if it's just kind of the culture of our game. Obviously in GSL there's stadiums and people are yelling and screaming, but the players are in like soundproof booths. So it's a little bit different. I think that everyone's just trying to be respectful to the players. Now what Idra did, I think, isn't really good. I don't agree with what he did by telling everyone to get off the line or getting a referee to get everyone off the line. No other player would do that, and it wasn't like they were hurting his play at all. So I think that he was just being tedious, or he was just sore after he lost to Last Shadow.
Just throwing it out there is another possibility here as well. Thinking back to one of Huck's matches where he ended up going for a mothership, the crowd went nuts when this happened, and his opponent was able to prepare because he knew Huck was doing something that had to be a little bit out of the ordinary since the crowd was cheering so wildly. For soundproof booths, that might be kind of a little bit of an extreme measure, but who knows? Maybe that's the way to do it too. That way people can get up close and not have to worry about bothering the people that are playing. I don't know. What do you think, Noxie?
There's kind of two options to go here, and I think, yeah, everyone on the forums is like, oh, GSL has soundproof booths, why can't we have them in MLG? And I think it's not there yet, but I think the alternative is maybe get soundproof headsets. You know, you don't really have to use them in the beginning. Maybe get like 16 pairs or something. So in the round of 16, right, players can wear them. That way the crowd doesn't really bother you at all. And I think that would really help out. I mean, no one's making hand signals. No one's doing anything like that to really distract the players. But the sound is a really big factor, and you could hear the casters commentating on the game as well. And you want to be able to have your audience be able to enjoy it, but you also want to make sure your players aren't listening or whatnot. So I think that maybe if they invested in some soundproof headsets, even if it was just 2 pairs for the final game, something that they can just put over like earbuds so that they can still hear the game, but are kind of like not able to hear the rest of the crowd or anything like that. I think that would be a really good improvement for either Dallas or next year on the circuit.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm a big fan of having soundproof headsets. I think that's what they can do. I know that they are in development to be fully noise canceling. I don't know if Astro is necessarily the company that I would rely on to make them, to be honest, but I think you're right. That would be the solution. Because to be honest with you, you know, culturally speaking, you know, I see the 21st century is really integrated. And what I mean by that is like, you know, I get that a lot of players that play StarCraft probably aren't professional athletes. And I get the fact that many of them may not be accustomed to that kind of environment. But at the end of the day, culturally, we really like hype. And although, you know, myself, I actually, you know, been to golf matches, I've been to tennis matches. I get where you need to be respectful. But I think where we are in the U.S., we have to do something that's going to continue to get spectators to come. And I don't think the current setup or even soundproof booths are necessarily culturally what America is going to accept. I think you hit it right on the head when you said noise-canceling headsets. I think that would be the solution.
After hearing what happened at DC, you know, Sundance did a little sit-down to take questions from anyone in the community. And the first question I actually managed to go over here is what he had thought about the whole StarCraft 2 thing. He said at first he didn't really like it too much, but after sitting down and watching it for a while, he got really into it and he's really excited about it. And what he wants to do for next year is improve on it, make it bigger. Like he wants to try to do similar to Halo 3, just not as big. But I feel if he can do that, then he can look at what Korea does and what they do in Europe and stuff like that, and possibly see what he can do to combine that to make it so the players will enjoy it more. Rather than not it happens, I don't know. I'm sure he'll improve on it, but I know that he definitely wants to make it bigger. So
yeah, well, I got an idea. If you wanted to make StarCraft bigger, you take that main stage for Halo 3, you turn that into the StarCraft 2 main stage, and then you make Halo reach a lot bigger of a stadium.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I think Sundance even said on our show that he only wants AAA titles. I mean, you know, he wants to treat games equally, and he needs the caliber and the type of game that they can be treated equally. So I would not be surprised if StarCraft next season was on a main stage. I think that goes without question. I'll say it here, I'm not a fan of having, like, players keep a certain distance. I mean, nothing made me want to slap Idra in the back of the head more than watch him cry. You know, you actually do feed an annoying nerd stereotype, and Idra's already not exactly Mr. Athlete. I'm just going to call it the way I see it. Having somebody who then starts to whine or cry in a spectating type event, that's not good. The second thing is, I think we do have a solution in noise-canceling headsets. So it's not like we need a complicated solution. It's not like we're asking somebody to invent something that doesn't exist. The technology is out there. Bose has had it for a long time. I know other companies are working on it. It's not like it couldn't be done. You know, it's not fair to the players to have to put up with anybody tipping off or exposing their strategies. I think everybody can agree that's bad. But the glass booth thing, I just know our gaming culture, and I think that's not going to work here.
I guess what I want to really know is, where do the Europeans fit into the StarCraft scene?
Well, We saw White Raw have a pretty okay performance. I know he stopped playing because he was recently married before DC, so there was questions of how good he was going to perform. But as far as like European versus America, right now the Europe ladder is actually quite stronger. One of the guys on VVV's A team, Rigid, he plays in both the American server and the European server, and he says it's much harder. So they do produce better players. Now, the possibility of them coming to America versus trying to go to GSL in Korea is kind of up in the air. I think a lot of those like high caliber players are looking to get into the scene at Korea, but we do still see like Sake come to MLG Raleigh and place very well. It's kind of like pick or choose, and I guess it's kind of luck of the draw whether or not Europeans want to come to America to play or go to Korea and play in the GSL.
One final question. Do you think Major League Gaming is competing with the Koreans at the end of the day? Or do you see it as something that we're going to be able to build here? You know, I always wonder, and I think one of the challenges probably for Major League Gaming also is, do you up the prize pool, get all the international players to come, or, you know, do we just leave the best competitive StarCraft in South Korea for now? Where do you think that would all kind of end up if you were to just take a guess?
Well, I think that MLG is competing, and I think next year, I think that's really going to be the building year for StarCraft in America, and it's going to strictly pretty much come from MLG, so hopefully there's just improvements along the way. I think that the whole venue and stuff needs to, you know, kind of have a main stage effect for it to really compete at GSL's level. To get people over, I think that StarCraft 2 can be very successful in America, and I'm not sure if that's prize pool necessarily or if it's just the players that come. You just got to find some way for players to want to come and compete in America. If American players are top, it's going to be convenience, but if American players are getting sponsored and going to Korea, which you take like a fact that only like a few Americans are over there right now, I think that if we build it up, you know, correctly, I think that American players will want to play the best games that they can in America. And it won't really matter, you know, if the Korean prize pool is a little bit higher or something like that. MLG can compete. It's just a matter of building it up to that level. And we're not there yet, but I think, you know, next year, possibly, yeah, sure. We could definitely be there.
Michael, thank you so much for stopping by the show and sharing your experiences with us. Were there any shout-outs you wanted to give?
Shout out to VVV community. It's been great. I haven't been here too long, but I've met a lot of cool people at DC, and I hope to meet more next year or possibly in Dallas.
Let's move on to something that, let me put it like this. How much Halo can one event have? Holy cow. Halo 3, Halo Reach. Justin, talk to me. Let's start with Halo 3. Wow. Were there some matches?
Oh boy, and this event was just amazing. It would have been pointless to go and see no teams make it into the top 8 for nationals and just the top 8 teams go on. But there were some big upsets, and it all started in the very beginning. My prediction came true. Final Boss taking first place. They struggled a little bit in the beginning. They lost Dynasty early on in the event, but came back in the winners bracket finals and took it to game 11 and somehow clutched it against them and went on and then played Triggers Down in the finals and then beat them pretty easily. Triggers Down, they went pretty much undefeated up until the finals. They lost in the finals, but every series they won up until then, so they did really well. The team that surprised me, definitely Dynasty. They came in, I wasn't seeing them doing that well. I was still seeing top 8, maybe top 6, but they came all the way in, took third, and went to the winners bracket finals as well, so that was pretty good of them.
You know, Justin, I can't agree with you more that this was the event where from early on, in some ways, I think a lot of people expected it was going to be pretty routine, and I think almost everything that wasn't routine that could happen kind of happened, and it made it exciting all the way to the end with the fantastic finals. But let's talk about that 8th spot, Justin, because I know at one point people were like, Carbon's not going to Dallas. Everyone was trying to do their own calculation. Talk about how that entire 8th spot unfolded in this event.
All right, well, this 8th spot, this was a battle. There was like a little battle between Darkest Hour, Warriors, Heaven and Earth, and Straight Rippin', and a toss-up maybe with Carbon in there as well, all for that 8th spot. Straight Rippin' did really well in the beginning of the event, but then started to struggle against these lower-seeded teams. But the team that surprised me the most had to have been Darkest Hour. Now, they came into the event, they didn't have a coach, and they went into their first match on Friday night, and they struggled. And Saturday morning, I actually sat down with them and coached them for a little bit in the pro lounge and just for myself to warm up. And I saw how they really played, and they were doing really well together. So I was kind of confused on why they were struggling. After they sat down and talked about it, I was there listening in on it. They went into their matches, and they started winning. They started dominating every team they played. Now, the way it was supposed to work is that if Warriors placed 5th or better and Darkest Hour placed 3rd or better, both Carbon and Straight would lose their placings. Darkest Hour went into play status quo for top 6. And that was an amazing Game 5 series where Darkest Hour clutched it and pulled ahead to win in Game 5 in Slayer. So they went on the top 6.
So do you think after that, before they got to Instinct, do you think that at that point maybe a lot of people started reevaluating what they thought and expected from Darkest Hour? Or do you think people thought maybe this was more of a fluke?
Well, this goes for all Heaven and Earth Warriors and Darkest Hour. All those teams weren't expected to place well. Yeah, there was a battle for it. However, against the teams that they had to play against, it wasn't looking too good. You have Instinct, Status Quo, and Final Boss playing against these teams. It wasn't looking that great, honestly. But when they came into it and they started coming down to the wire, Darkest Hour upset Status Quo in Game 5, moves on to the top 6. They played against Instinct. In reality, that was pretty much a definite. Everyone thought Instinct was going to win. However, in Game 5, the same thing happened. Darkest Hour was playing the most amazing Halo of their lives. And they pulled through and beat Instinct in Game 5 as well. So they were in the top 4 already. Now for Warriors, they came in and they actually had to play against Straight Rippin', and they beat them. So that was for top 8. The Warriors beat them, and then they had to play Heaven and Earth. So Warriors and Heaven and Earth duked it out for that top 6 to try to clinch themselves a top 8 seed for Nationals. When that happened, Warriors and Heaven and Earth battled it out to Game 5, and Warriors came ahead and won. So with Darkest Hour beating Instinct, Warriors actually losing their next matchup, that leaves Instinct playing Warriors. So at this point, all the pros are huddled around this match. They want to see who's getting that spot. Warriors comes out strong and takes down Instinct and secures themselves a national championship spot.
All right, this will put Warriors in 5th place, correct, in the event?
Yes, that leaves Warriors in 5th place overall.
And this is what then allows them, and that's a good enough placing for them to make Dallas for the Nationals, correct?
That is correct. That would be over Straight Rippin'.
Now we have Darkest Hour, who basically needs to win, and they're competing for that 8th spot with Carbon, correct?
That is true. However, Darkest Hour just got done beating Instinct. They're playing amazing. However, they have to go against a strong Final Boss for that 3rd place spot. So if Darkest Hour comes through and gets 3rd, they move on to Nationals over Carbon. In that 3rd place battle between Darkest Hour and Final Boss 3-0'd them. However, it was a battle for it. They lost by 1 flag cap, they lost by 5 seconds in ball, and lost by 3 kills in Slayer. So each of those matches came down to the wire. So Darkest Hour gets 3-0'd. And so now it all comes down to calculations. MLG has to get together and sit down and figure out where these placings are and all their points. In the end, Darkest Hour misses that 8th spot over Carbon by 10 Pro Circuit points. 10 points.
Now, to talk about this and talk about something that really interests me here, everybody listening to this podcast, we need to really figure out a way to make going into Nationals, I don't know how to say this. I think I'm going to agree with Ryan, who always complains about this. I think the point system needs to change because I'll tell you what, I would much rather watch a Nationals where Darkest Hour gets to continue playing than watch one that includes Carbon, who didn't even place top 8.
The whole reason why the Carbon roster was made was strictly on points. They had a dominant amount of points, and they didn't really have to worry, and especially at the fact that they weren't expecting Darkest Hour to place top 4. And when they came out swinging, everyone's sitting there on Carbon and Straight Rippin' biting their nails because they see these teams about to take their dreams away. In a way, I think it needs to change. I think the concept of matches needs to be changed because, let's put it like this, the only reason why Darkest Hour didn't make it to Nationals was because their former teammate Legend would not play contests. So every time they had a consolation match, they would always forfeit and get to last place. That screwed them. If they'd played at least one consolation match and won throughout the entire year, they would be on to nationals right now. And you know what frustrated the most about this was they did not show Darkest Hour play Instinct. They did not show Darkest Hour play Status Quo. They did not show Darkest Hour play Final Boss on the main stage. Instead, they were doing combine matches when everyone was complaining about the fact that these matches should be on main stage right now because of how intense they were. This was the most intense Halo I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. This was not the event that you should have been sitting home. I'm just going to say that, unfortunately, for better or worse, there were amazing performances by teams that nobody predicted, that the bottom line story is here. Oh my God, did some teams give it their all. And I'm going to be honest, even Final Boss, they didn't just win. I mean, I think, and you guys are welcome to disagree with me, I think Pistola had probably the event of his lifetime. I really do. I think the way he played, that was amazing.
That's definitely true. And the thing is like Final Boss weren't given the event easy. They had to battle for it. And they had all these teams they had to play for against just to get there. I mean, you see, they played Dynasty. Dynasty beat them. And then they came back and beat them in an 11-game series. Darkest Hour gave them a huge run for their money. And like all these teams that just made Final Boss's job that tough to get to first place. And Pistola and Fear itself just playing amazing Halo. Like all four of them played amazing Halo to come through and get first place. Like I just think it was the most incredible event.
I know on my drive home, people were checking their phones in the back seat, and one of our players on Ambush had the top spot for KD, and then as soon as Final Boss played the finals, Fear Itself and Pistola both passed him.
To be honest, I think everybody deserved where they got, and in all of this conversation, I really like Triggers Down. I think a lot of people talk a lot about crap about Triggers Down. I mentioned this before. I always hear certain things, but I tell you what, that team is a lot of fun to watch.
Well, they definitely are. They all have really happy-go-lucky personalities. You have Tots and Neighbor on that team. They're always doing things to impress the audience and stuff like that. And then they have Best Man and Stair, who are both great slayers. So you have a really good fan favorite of a team. Like, although people don't really like Hysteria too much, you can't hate to love them. I don't know. These kids came out as well. They practiced hard before the event, and they came in, and they went all the way to the women's bracket finals and into the finals. Nobody was really expecting that either. Everyone is expecting now, since, there's a new roster, the investment on the team, that they wouldn't place that well. They really proved themselves this event, and I was really surprised by that.
So just to go over this one more time, Final Boss, great job. Pistola, amazing. Triggers Down, solid. Definitely a great tournament. Dynasty, coming in third. Nobody can say anything. They're either Darkest Hour, Warriors. I think there were some surprises. And an Instinct, Status Quo, and then Heaven and Earth. That rounds out 8 spots. And I think the other big news is that it's sad that Darkest Hour will not be at Nationals after this performance. It's sad that Carbon is going to, like a beached whale, flop over into the Nationals. Forgive me for chuckling about this, but straight ripping. Guess we won't be seeing you at Nationals. Sorry, guys.
Now, I do want to bring us back to one thing that you said earlier about how if you missed this event, you really had to just pretty much follow it on Twitter feed because they were playing combine matches on the pro stadium, so to speak. It kind of baffles me, honestly, because they had the Doritos main stage for the combine event itself, right? So why would they be using the pro bleachers for a combine match at all?
And that's the thing also, is that the Doritos Combine main stage was being streamed. So why they decided to put matches on the main stage when they had all these teams battling for an 8th spot and watching dreams being shattered and dreams coming true, that surprises me. I think they should have changed that and put these matches on main stage, but I don't know. I guess it's something for them to learn about.
In a way, we kind of want to see more games on main stage, and maybe MLG thought that would have been a good idea. The people at home ended up missing out. So, this is a question really at a producer level. Who produces the show at the end of the day? Who puts it all together? That's something that, could have been handled better, to say the least.
Exactly. Like, we do want to see more games on the main stage, but they chose the probably worst timing to put it on, like, another game on the main stage, right?
Yeah, well, that's my cut too. All right, let me round out the Halo coverage by talking about Reach real quick. We'll give a shout out to Amish Acorns for being the FFA champion. If you haven't heard, Vicious Intent, they ended up being the champions for 4v4. Some of the wild card winners, right? There's the Ninja Zeku, right? Swift Kill, Calm Mentality, all doing real well. Just so everybody knows, those are your wild card winners. You don't know what a wild card winner is? Well, pay attention to the Doritos Combine. That's what I'm telling you right now. I thought the other notable things about the Combine were that if you're a multi-genre gamer, you are not good at Reach. I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to say, you know what? For all of the shit talking before Washington, D.C., you know who you are. Kill yourself. You are horrible. You should break your Reach disc. Stick to something that you're good at. Like, I don't know, something really simple. I'll leave it at that.
Personally, my favorite portion of Washington, D.C., at least spectator-wise, was the Super Smash Bros. Brawl event. And, well, we aren't going to go too deep into coverage on this. If you want to hear the full results, everything that happened from Smash Brothers, please make sure to catch our podcast, Directional Influence. You can get it by either subscribing to VV Gaming on iTunes or checking our website, vvgaming.podbean.com. There'll be full, in-depth results and coverage, interviews, all that great stuff about the Smash Brothers tournament at DC. Make sure to check that out.
To give you guys the short and dirty, congratulations to ADHD for winning the tournament. Finally, and I mean this in a loving way, Mewtwo King gets upset. Congratulations to Rich Brown on his second place. Obviously, Mewtwo King comes in third. Esam in a fourth. Fatal Matt comes in fifth, which a few people were surprised with. Mike Hayes, big improvement, sixth place. Havoc continues to move up the ladder at seventh place. And then Ally rounds out eighth place. So at the end of the day, Brawl was full of surprises and upsets.
One of my absolute favorite moments from the Brawl tournament is when Rich Brown defeated Mewtwo King, the first set that Mewtwo King had lost all season long. You saw VV Havoc jump up on stage and give him this big hug, picking him up off his feet and swinging him around, just congratulating him for doing what some people were considering might be impossible. So, very awesome. Definitely check out Directional Influence later this week. It's going to be a ton of great coverage.
And we would not be fair if we didn't cover WoW and Tekken 6. Here's the story. WoW, I don't know what the end result is going to be, but looks like it might not be in Dallas. You know, I wouldn't be surprised, nor would I complain too much if WoW just went away. Sorry to all you WoW fans, but game's dated. Cataclysm is coming out. Enjoy your MMO and your PvE, your rating. But as far as competitive gaming, it's not spectator friendly. I'm not a fan. To something that is spectator friendly, Tekken 6, congratulations to the Koreans. I thought they came. And they again demonstrated why they are some of the best players in the world. So that, in a nutshell, rounds out the competitive happenings at Major League Gaming's 51st event at Washington, D.C.
Back on Sunday, an article came out in the Washington Post, written by Miss Jenna Johnson. The name of the article was Video Gamers Finally Meet Online Friends, Compete for Nerdy Bragging Rights. This got quite a few gamers' feathers ruffled, as there was quite a bit in the article that turned some heads, at least from the standpoint of maybe some things that were incorrect factually. But aside from that, I'd love to hear some opinions. If you guys got to catch this article, what are your thoughts?
I think the Washington Post maybe needs to send a better person to cover the story next time, maybe one with open mind, maybe. I don't know.
I was pretty outraged by it. Because she's trying to apply the usual stereotypical gamer into the article, and it just wasn't working out. Like, let me bring up a quote here. It says, "And very few women other than the handful in short black skirts handing out soda." Really, I'm pretty sure there were a lot of women there, and not just because they were working for MLG. And another quote being, It also included brands that girlfriends of the players, or their moms might wish more associated with gaming. Old Spice, Big Flex, Four Razors, and Stride Gum. Really? We're not all like that. We all, for the most part, have girlfriends, have lives outside of gaming. This is something we do for fun. Some people actually have it as a job because they make enough money doing it. Why she's trying to apply the typical stereotype to this event was kind of outrageous, especially the fact that she doesn't know what she's talking about in the article. She tried to talk about Halo Reach, and she doesn't know anything about Reach, so she had to go research the game and then get something from other websites just so she could throw it in the article. On top of that, she doesn't even know what a land practice is. The way she thought of it was land